In this presentation, I will outline our reading journey. We know we are not yet where we need to be, and the demand for high quality teaching of reading increases year on year, particularly with the long-lasting impact of COVID. We know we need to continue to improve the impact that we have, with a particular focus on how fast our weakest readers catch up. But let's take the opportunity to celebrate the journey so far, which fundamentally has changed our school culture around reading. And I'm sure with continued skill development of our teaching staff, we will accelerate our impact on all readers, including those in most need of support. We recognise the need for careful implementation and not to try and attack things like a race, especially something so big as reading. Careful exploration and preparation of each stage of our plan has meant we are creating longer-term sustainable change to our practice. We are in the deliver stage of the Reading is Power framework. I'm just going to pause for a minute so you can have a look at the deliver stage on the implementation diagram on the screen. So we are at the stage where we continue to reinforce training and provide support within school for teachers and support staff to develop their skills as teachers of reading. I refer to the phrase intelligent adaptation here, or adaption. And this really links to our changes to register and read, and they are an example of us adapting our Reading is Power framework to continue to evolve and make improvements. But there are still problems to solve, and I think there are very few of us right now who could put hand on heart and say we have fully implemented with success every strategy identified in the Reading is Power framework. So there is still follow-on training and support to be taking place, which is why we are in the deliver stage of implementation when it comes to the Reading is Power framework. So I'm going to pause for just a moment to allow you to read these 4 quotes from Mary Myatt. As an experienced teacher, there is nothing here that I wouldn't wholeheartedly agree with. With respect to the first 2 statements, we should not see any evidence of GCSE within our Key Stage 3 curriculum. We have a Key Stage 3 curriculum which is rich in core knowledge and a hinterland of stories, texts, anecdotes to add that richness. And I would encourage subject leaders to reflect at this point whether this is completely true of your Key Stage 3 curriculum, and if not, what is it that needs reviewing? We know that many of our pupils are not at their chronological reading age. And for the majority, this does mean they are within 2 to 3 years of the correct age. So there is a language deficit. Many of these pupils can decode successfully, but cannot comprehend. So what is Reading is Power? So Reading is Power is one of the 3 core strands of our curriculum, and it's set on our Reading is Power framework. This is a list of 7 core strategies which are implemented across school. It is not based on the fact that tackling reading is to do with intervention lessons. It's quite the opposite. This is why our intervention strand is Strategy 7. It is based on the fact that if we are to improve the quality of reading, we are all responsible. Here are some highlights from our Reading is Power mission. You will find this in the Reading is Power framework. We are all teachers of reading, regardless of our role. And I think what's important to remember here is that every single interaction with a pupil offers an opportunity to support their reading development. Another useful summary that I've shared once before from Mary Myatt is displayed on the screen. Have a think of a reading activity in your curriculum now. What are the visuals that you use to support this reading activity? If there are not any, could we choose an exquisite image, an image that would capture imagination and engagement to display alongside this activity? Yes, our pupils might not all be reading at their chronological reading age, but we do not dumb down our approach. There is nothing worse than feeling patronised. We also do not dumb down vocabulary. We use the richest of terminology. We might need to stop and we might need to explain what it means, but we remain ambitious at all times. And to finish with a recap of the reading theory before we move on, I just wanted to remind you of the Hollis-Scarborough reading rope, which features at the start of our framework. The reading rope illustrates the two dimensions of reading, being language comprehension and word recognition. The majority of our pupils are limited by their language comprehension. We have a very small group of pupils who access tuition for word recognition. You can see how the strands of language comprehension feed directly into our reading is power strategies. If you were to be asked, how do you teach reading? A great answer is actually to say by teaching language comprehension and providing examples of the strands that you can see on the screen and how you teach those in your subject area. So our journey so far. Reading has never not existed at Hillside, but the culture and expectation on staff and pupils around reading has changed, and it continues to evolve as we learn. Some of the points that you can see on the screen are examples of some of the ideas that we had in place many years ago to do with reading. But this was not enough. Why did we need to change? Well, it wasn't effective. It wasn't enough, and it wasn't skilled. And it lacked careful planning. And it lacked consistent, strong subject knowledge of reading at all levels. And the number of pupils arriving not secondary ready were on the increase. And we've seen that sharp increase with our current Year 8 from the impact of COVID. In 2019, we launched our Hillside Core 5, and we recognised the importance of word-rich classrooms. Here is an image of what we mean by a word-rich classroom, and this is taken from Alex Quigley, Closing the Vocabulary Gap. So in Year 1, 2019, our initial focus was on making classrooms word-rich, and this became a key feature of the implementation of our curriculum. Recognition of just saying we are a school that reads is simply not enough. We needed to introduce clear and explicit strategies for the teaching of vocabulary. In Year 2, we moved on to more CPD around the word-rich element of the Hillside Core 5, introducing the teaching of vocabulary using the tiered words, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Our Register and Read was launched. This was the first year we had form novels, and the focus was on reading aloud. We started to gain better knowledge of our pupils with more in-depth and diagnostic reading testing, identifying that small cohort who needed that additional support for decoding. And we introduced challenging texts across the curriculum. For example, we introduced a core text, a novel, in the Key Stage 3 maths curriculum. And then in Year 3 was 2021 to 2022, we launched our Reading is Power framework, pulling all of the work on reading together into 7 clear strategies. We raised the bar in terms of the effective teaching of reading. It wasn't just about putting reading into the curriculum. It was about every teacher becoming a teacher of reading. We further improved the diagnostics. Pupils are screened using NGRT, Lucid, and more regular dyslexic screening. And our Register and Read moved on to be comprehension-based, focusing on questioning through guided reading techniques. We practice this. For example, we all practice the predict stage of the EEF guidance. And our new and improved LRC opened, along with an established team of pupil reading reps. So where are we now? Well, we have a huge reading implementation team, and I won't read through it all, but you can see on the list on the right-hand side just how many staff and pupils are part of our reading implementation team. We've worked on disciplinary reading. We identify that learning to read is very different in different subjects. This is what disciplinary reading means. The way we teach to read like a mathematician will be very different to the way we teach to read like an artist. These documents will be reviewed over the coming week to check if subject leaders would like any amendments for this academic year. Register and Read continues to build momentum, and all of the pupils you can see here came in voluntarily to the LRC at lunch and break to be involved in activities linked to their form novel. We've explored new and ambitious texts which are not only modern, but also teach inclusivity and diversity. And our curriculum intent maps map out and sequence reading in each of our curriculum areas. We have detailed diagnostics and tracking systems. Here, I've selected a cohort of Year 9 from last year who had additional tuition alongside the standard curriculum offer. And we're able to easily track and see the improvements. On average, this group improved 8 points in their scaled score, with notable improvements of 2 pupils gaining 20 points on their scaled score. The data is improving, but it's just not fast enough. Reading is Power remains a core feature of our CPD programme. Last year, in terms of interventions, we had Bedrock for all of Year 7 and 8. We had Project X, which 55 pupils accessed. We had 26 pupils access guided reading comprehension tuition. We had 36 pupils trained in inference in an intensive programme. 29 pupils access in Flash Academy, 36 on Racing to English, and 10 pupils accessing phonics support. All in all, when we total it up, 192 pupils accessed a tuition programme above and beyond the whole school curriculum teaching. This will continue to strengthen, and this will aid and bolster the teaching of reading in the curriculum lessons for those who need it most. We see reading to learn in our pupils' books, and here are just a few examples. And we see the culture around reading changing. The engagement in our LRC continues to increase. By purchasing new novels, new books, we've had lots of pupils and an increase in the loaning of books. And I've already had several pupils asking me for where volume 3 is for Heartstopper. So what now? So now we're in Year 4. We need to sustain the Reading is Power framework. And here are the 5 bullet points for this year. Strategy 1, oracy improvements. This will be underpinned by our Voice 21 Stage 2 support. Number 2, right text, right time, right strategy. This is a reflection for us all this year. Looking at texts, whether it be in Register and Read, or whether it be in the additional interventions, or whether it be as part of our curriculum areas. Is it the right text? Is it sequenced in the right place? And are we pairing it with the right reading strategy? We need to strengthen disciplinary literacy, highlight to our pupils that reading to learn as a historian is very different to reading to learn as a scientist. Continue to build a suite of interventions and space. You may have noticed we have an additional reading recovery room, which is next door to the teaching and learning base. And bespoke CPD. There will be an offer of additional CPD sessions available for elements of this presentation. Staff can dip in and out of whichever they might like to attend. It might be that you didn't teach here when we introduced what word-rich classrooms are. For example, you might decide to opt in to one of these. I'd like to finish with 2 points. Firstly, pupils can cope with the right support. We remain ambitious, we don't dumb anything down, and we build in those high quality, rich texts and examples of rich vocabulary that is consistently ambitious for our pupils. Because regardless of their reading age, they can cope if they have the right support. And secondly, if you take anything away from the core message of our Reading is Power framework, make it this. A rich diet of vocabulary is absolutely key to success. Thank you for listening, and I hope the CPD offer around Reading is Power this year supports your development as a teacher of reading.